We'd all agree that this world is broken. People get sick and they die, and it's really, really tough. Pause, translate. But this broken world we live in isn't actually how God designed it. Pause, translate. Over here we'll have what is called God's good design. And I'll pause, they can translate God's good design. Initially, God wanted people to dwell with him in harmony. It was peaceful and it was joyful. Pause, translate. But because God is loving, he gave people a choice. They had free will. Pause, translate. But in that choice, humanity chose sin. Pause, translate. Sin is anything we think, say, or do that doesn't please or honor God. Pause, translate. It's sin that led to this broken world we live in. Pause, translate. We do a lot of things to try to cope with the brokenness and sin in the world. Some people turn to alcohol, or performance, or relationships. For me, I thought I could overcome sin by making perfect grades in school. Pause, translate. But all of the things we do to try to cope with our brokenness act like bungee cords or really stretchy ropes. They might seem to work for a moment, but they snap us right back to where we started, if not to a worse place. Pause, translate. But God didn't want to leave us in this broken world. Because God is loving, he sent his son, Jesus, down to the earth. He lived a perfect life with no sin. Pause, translate. And Jesus took the punishment we deserved for our sin by dying a very painful death on a cross. Pause, translate. Because sin ultimately leads to death and destruction. But the good news is that Jesus didn't stay dead. Pause, translate. 3 days later, Jesus rose from the grave, defeating sin and death forever. Pause, translate. Such that all we have to do is turn to Jesus and trust in him so that we can be restored into God's good design. Pause, translate, the little guy. When we place our faith in Jesus, we can spend eternity with God where there is no sin and death. Pause, translate. You could also use the word heaven there. But in the meantime, we have a new hope because we know our standing before God is secure. Pause, translate. But the story doesn't stop here, because once we've made the decision to make Jesus the Lord of our life, or the boss of our life, we're called to go into the brokenness and tell others the good news about Jesus. Pause, translate. So I'd ask you, do you feel like you've been restored back into God's good design, or do you feel like you're still living in brokenness? Pause, translate. If they say God's good design, that's so great. Let's pray together. If they say brokenness, what's stopping you from turning to Jesus and trusting in him? And then you go from there.